Why is New Vegas so good? I think that's something that a lot of the time people have a hard time getting to grips with, just why New Vegas is this internet darling and seems to get so much hype and so much awareness when so many other games are trashed and, not looked upon favourably. Fallout 4, for example. I, for one, liked Fallout 4. But the response to the Outer Worlds video, mainly from messages that I've been getting, has been, well, I enjoyed the Outer Worlds. I enjoyed what I saw. I enjoyed what I got to do when I was in the game. But the overwhelming majority of the people who've emailed me and said that have not played or have recently played Fallout New Vegas and haven't really played through it to its completion yet. Now, for me, Fallout New Vegas, essentially, the main reason why it is such a fantastic game is simply because of its choice. It's choice in how you roleplay, it's choice in how you build your character and how you go about making changes to the world. I've already cross-referenced Outer Worlds and New Vegas, so I don't think I need to again. But instead, and I don't really want to go through Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 with New Vegas, because those videos have been done to death. There are much better YouTubers out there who you can go and watch who have they've done a much better job of actually talking about the game than I have. But I just want to take you through my experience with it and what I did. So, initially, New Vegas, what it does, and I'd like to cross-reference New Vegas with Shadowrun Returns and Shadowrun Dragonfall mainly. What New Vegas does is something that I term in-game storytelling. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of a derivative thing, but in-game storytelling to me is actually a game saying to you, hey, you want to be a part of the game, that's cool. You've got your own character, that's cool. Why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? There's a character in the game who literally says, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? Right? Obsidian sometimes do this in their games quite on the nose. So at the start of Pillars of Eternity, for instance, you're asked by Kaliska, quite literally, who are you? Where are you from? What kind of a person are you? And she gives you quips about your personality when you respond to her. In Shadowrun Dragonfall, you were asked by one of your party members, just who you are, what your relationship was to your former boss, how you came to be in Berlin, what are you doing now, why? Okay. Fallout New Vegas is the first game to do this all the way through the game. Every single faction that you interact with in New Vegas is after something, and every single faction that you interact with will ask you the same questions without actually asking you any questions. Just in the way you respond to these factions actually allows you to roleplay, actually allows you to get into the head of your character. Are they a fan of Caesar's Legion, or are they not a fan of Caesar's Legion? Were they a part of Caesar's Legion? One of the best characters I ever played on that game that really got me into it was I was playing a Legion agent masquerading as a courier. That was basically his job. He was meant to fool everyone into thinking he was a courier to get his hands on the platinum chip, because of course Caesar wants the platinum chip, and so it made a lot of sense that when you go and see Caesar, he's actually pissed off with you when you refuse to give him the chip, because obviously, you're meant to be working for him. So with a little bit of, a tiny bit of mental gymnastics, I was able to get grounded in the world to such a point where when I was speaking to NCR people, I could be flippant and dismissive. When I was speaking to, other people that I thought were profligates, I could be flippant and dismissive or even aggressive. But when he actually gets his eyes opened by Nipton, that's when the character starts to change away from the Legion. And he actually starts to think, maybe I've got a life away from the Legion here, because he is a Frumentari, he's a scout. And eventually he goes away from Caesar's Legion and does the Yes Man part of the main quest, where he establishes an independent New Vegas under his own rule. He takes out Caesar, and things like that. So I think that's the one thing that Bethesda mainly miss in the quest design. In that, if you look at Skyrim, can you tell me one time in Skyrim when the game asks you who you are, apart from the very start, when you literally says, who are you, and you make your character? I'm quite honest, I can't actually think of one myself. There is not one moment in that game where you're asked, who are you? Why are you doing this? In Bethesda, I would say you roleplay mainly by your actions and what you're doing, but that takes another level of immersion, and it takes a lot of effort on the player's part to just forego all of the other things you're telling them about the world to just be the Dragonborn, to just be this massive great hero. I would actually say you can't really make... I mean, your Dragonborn in Skyrim can literally do everything. They can be a Dark Brotherhood ruthless assassin. They can be the Dragonborn hero. They can go on and join the Companions, which is basically the Fighters Guild, to be an honourable veteran there. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm all for redemption stories, but one character shouldn't be able to do everything. Back in the day, Bethesda got this completely spot on with Morrowind, when there were certain things you just couldn't do. Like, you couldn't join... If you joined one faction, that would make other factions annoyed with you, and you wouldn't be able to go with them, because it was in a sense, it was a living, breathing world, and that was more important than you having all of the toys. And New Vegas seems to strike that balance, which is why I love it so much. New Vegas strikes that real balance where it says to you, hey, you know, you can join all of these factions, but you're going to have to do a hell of a lot of convincing to get people to go along with you. And you may even need to wipe a few people out, you know? And that's kind of what I liked about that's kind of what I liked about New Vegas. The fact you can choose your neighbors. You can go through the world and actually choose and decide who's going to be able to live in this world with you when it's all said and done. One of the bad things about New Vegas, and there are bad things, aside from the absolute state the game came out in, which wasn't all Obsidian's fault, to be fair. Despite that, I actually think that the game could have done with letting you continue after the main story and giving you some context into what happened with your decisions. You know? But also, I do get what they're saying in that they didn't have the time to do that. And Bethesda also do that. They also let you continue the story after you've finished the game. But for me, that is quite constricting, because in Fallout 4, for example, yeah, you can nuke the Institute base at the end. You can do all sorts of things. You can take down the Predwin. But aside from that, what actually changes in the world? Nothing. Because it can't. Because it takes so much effort for them to go into the world and change everything because of the choices that you made. And it also limits the player choice. You can't let them make really huge decisions, because then you're going to have to make massive changes to the world, or it'll be huge cognitive dissonance when they actually carry on playing after the main story's finished. Whereas in Fallout New Vegas, they let you make huge decisions that completely change the wasteland, but then don't let you see them. You see them in a slideshow at the end. Yeah? Again, that's one of the things that I always thought was a bit strange. But also, I can see why they did it. I just wish they didn't. Another thing that New Vegas does really well is characters. So characters that are coming with you on your journey, companions. Now, companions in New Vegas are not romanceable from the get-go. In fact, I don't think they're romanceable at all. In fact, I think if you're a straight male, one of them's gay, and the other one just refuses to even contemplate any sort of like romantic entanglement, things like that. Which I honestly, that was one of the things with Obsidian that's always annoyed me, and that's the complete lack of romance options. Not because I'm this BioWare fanboy who thinks there should be love and happiness and everything. Not that at all. I actually think that Obsidian have the talent, the writing talent there, or at least they did have the writing talent before they got rid of Chris Avellone, where they can create amazing romances and stories about that if they wanted to. And I think that's one of the things that BioWare sort of lost scope with in terms of romance, in that in their games it becomes a feature. You get to romance people, but that also means they can just like throw things in, and sometimes you can romance people. Like, people are interested in you regardless because you're the player character. That's seriously the thing I get from new BioWare games, is that people are interested in you because you're the player character. They're not interested in you because of your character's personality. The last time they got this right was in Dragon Age Origins, and they've not got it right since. Even in BioWare, I get a even in Mass Effect, I get a serious feeling that they're interested in you because you're Shepard, because you're the player character. They're not interested in Shepard's personality that you've crafted from the ground up. I think Obsidian could do that. I just think they didn't in New Vegas because they didn't have the time or the resources. But since then, they've gotten rid of Chris Avellone since then, when Pillars of Eternity came out. And there was no romances in that game either. But in Pillars of Eternity 2, there were romances, and they were the most lazy BioWare-style romances you can imagine. They were just literally slapped in there, afterthought. There you go, there's some romances. That's not the way to do it. And I think it's a detriment to New Vegas, because I really believe you could have told some amazing stories in your romance quest lines in New Vegas, you know, especially even if you're a woman, like Boone's quest line where you've got to go and avenge his wife and to get him on your side, and then you've got to go and take him to where there was a massacre that he was involved in when he was in the NCR. That could be a really powerful storytelling moment, and if he likes your personality, if he likes the fact that you're supporting the NCR, if he likes the choices that you've made, then he's romanceable. You know, it doesn't take very much, but they didn't go with that in New Vegas when they had the talent to, but not the time. And now they do have the time, they don't have the talent. So again, I will do a video on romances coming up with BioWare and things, because I just think it's extremely lazy the way that's going right now. But in terms of New Vegas, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. And it gives you the breadth and scope to actually be a whatever you want. You can be whoever you want, be whatever you want, as many other games do, to be honest. But what it does so well is it grounds you in the world. It actually throws you into the world and says, hey, here is the NCR, here is the Legion. And it does what I think is immersive grounding. Okay, so immersive grounding happens in games like Dragon Age Origins, where the game takes you in and it says, here are all of the factions, here are all of the kingdoms, here are all the religions that we know of, and I'm going to introduce them to you in a way that's believable. So there's no one person who just stands in front of you and gives you an exposition dump. That doesn't happen. As you naturally go through the story, things get revealed to you and things get filled in as you're going through, right? Or almost subliminally. They're teaching you what's in the world, things like that. One fantastic example of that in Dragon Age Origins is the first camp at Ostergard, when you're walking around and you're getting to know people around the camp and you're getting to know what they do and what the Templars do and what the Knights do and what the King of Ferelden does and what the Elves do, and it's all there. You know, you can, they're all there in one place, so you can have a little microcosm. You have a little. It's basically, I call it a vertical slice of the world. They give you a vertical slice, just like they're doing development of the world, and there you go. It's all there. And New Vegas does that just as well. And good. By the time you've left Good Springs, you know who the Legion are. You know who the NCR are. You know what the conflict is over Hoover Dam. You know who Mr. House is. You know who his robots are. You basically know everything you need to complete the game right there. And those people will flesh themselves out as the story goes along, which I think is absolutely insanely good. Absolutely insanely good. You know, as a bit of storytelling. What isn't good for me, okay, are things like Dragon Age Inquisition, where you're literally given a massive big info dump at the start, and people tell you what things are going on, and then they just throw you into the story willy-nilly. That off you go, you know. And I think role-playing games have become very gamey over the years, where a lot of writers just want to get the tropes out of the way so they can get to the meat of the story without laying the groundwork first. And I think one of the things that Obsidian did really, really, really well in New Vegas is that they laid that groundwork. They literally said, here is Good Springs, you decide what happens to it. You can push and pull all the mechanics and all the things that you can and can't do, and then you can leave and you can go and do whatever the hell you want. And I think they did an amazing job of that. And to be honest with you, Bethesda have done it at least once before as well, because Fallout 4 had a similar fantastic opening. I don't care what anyone says about it. In that you are literally the perfect protagonist for that kind of a setting, where you're going in there not as an amnesiac, but as someone who literally hasn't been there because you were frozen. So you haven't seen how the world's changed. You haven't seen how things have gone. And to be honest with you, I really wish that they would have let the character be a bit more shocked by what's going on. Because the first time you see a mole rat or a rad scorpion there, you just don't react. You just shoot at it and it dies. And you know, but to be honest with you, if you come from the 1950s America to a wasteland of your hometown and there's fucking giant scorpions walking around, you're going to go off your you're going to lose your shit. So I think that's one thing that Fallout 4 did quite well, but not as good as other games that have that we can certainly think of. But New Vegas is certainly one of those games that does it exactly as you're supposed to do it, as you're heading into the wasteland. So if you've not given Fallout New Vegas a go, if you've not had a go at it, I've tried not to spoil anything, reload it and have a go. Okay? One day I will do a more in-depth coverage of Fallout New Vegas, but at the moment I don't have time to replay it, which is really unfortunate, because I'm going to be doing a bit of a playthrough of Fallout 4. But that's essentially all I've got to say about it. So what did you think of Fallout New Vegas when it came out? And since you played it since then, what do you actually think of the storytelling? Are there any things that you can pick out that you can actually share with me, that are memories that you've had, or times in games in general where they're giving you a really good introduction to the world, or let you role play in a really specific way? If there is, drop them down below, and I'll speak to you guys next time.